My name is Matt Pacuco, president of Save Puerto Ranch, a local residents advocacy group. So this bill is very focused and includes everyone's concern about maintaining energy reliability. So unless we all do not count on all our various agencies that are now working to ensure that, I don't know. The maintenance and inspection in SB 380 would codify that reliability. SoCalGas has done little or nothing according to their own filings with the PUC. They are waiting for the PUC and ratepayers to ensure reliability through rate increases. SoCalGas criteria and current DOGGR regulations were a massive fail in this case. This bill would ensure reliability of that facility that clearly SoCalGas hasn't done themselves via a much more rigorous inspection and maintenance regime. Much of the opposition concern is what might happen someday maybe with their energy reliability. In the meantime, as we all sit here, Puerto Ranch residents continue to suffer even after this single blowout has been allegedly controlled. That is not a someday maybe. That one is real right now.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment in support? Okay, let's go to witnesses in opposition. Please come forward to the table. Yeah, we'll do that.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael Shaw with California Manufacturers and Technology Association, and we're in an opposed unless amended position. I think first and foremost, public health and safety certainly rules. That is not something that we would ever call into question or put at jeopardy in this case. We are fortunate to be here in the situation where the gas leak has been plugged. That is, unfortunately, however, after several months, impacting the residents of the community. And we are not blind to that, nor would we suggest that business as usual return to the Aliso Canyon facility. We believe that the amendments taken in committee will help to clarify some issues. However, we think there are some outstanding issues that require additional clarification. And we want to appreciate Senator Pavley and her staff for the time that they have put into conversations over the past couple of weeks. And believe that the discussions are moving in a positive direction. Energy reliability in the Southern California is critical to California and critical to the nation, and it is an issue which we need to consider in the midst of this discussion. 40% of the containerized cargo coming into the U.S. flows through the Port of LA and Long Beach, depends heavily on transportation fuels as well as electrical generation. 60% of our transportation fuels are produced in facilities, refineries in the region that could be impacted, I should say, by potential energy reliability issues, related to the moratorium on this facility over an extended period of time. CPUC, the CEC, and CAISO have sent a letter, to the governor expressing concern over, that this facility not be in operation, available for power generation, natural gas deliveries to the region, into the summer and also into the next winter, so that there is, reason, as they say, to be concerned about that. They're also working on an April analysis. In terms of the more specifically as to the extent of the energy reliability concerns, and we would certainly encourage this committee to consider that analysis in the discussion as well, and the Assembly as a whole as the legislation moves forward. I would say in terms of specific amendments that we would recommend, in the production section of the bill currently there is language dealing with energy reliability concerns, and we think that is appropriate that it be there. However, on the injection portion of the bill, there is no similar language dealing with energy reliability concerns. And of course, at some point, the facility is no longer able to produce gas for power generation and natural gas deliveries. And we would express that there's concern over that. So simply, I would say, to a degree, mirroring the language in the production piece over on the injection side would certainly go a ways towards addressing that concern. Additionally, the way the bill is currently written, I think it's unclear as to whether or not all wells have to be inspected before any injection or production could resume, or if inspection of a well that is deemed to be safe according to current standards, or could be remediated, in a quick fashion, would then be available for injection and production. I think it's an issue that needs to be clarified. And I think if we get a ways towards that, we've done, I think, a good work here in terms of protecting public health and safety, at the same time protecting energy reliability, which is, a could-be question, certainly, but it is a question for which the answer in the negative in terms of problems existing would also have significant ramifications for Southern California economically, as well as potential expansion of energy reliability issues into other parts of the western U.S. That depend on Southern California and the electrical grid in the state. So with that, I would say, California Manufacturers Technology Association appreciate, again, the author's work on this issue and discussions that we've had with her staff, but also would certainly encourage this committee to ask questions in regard to the energy reliability issue and address that with some additional amendments.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Public comment in opposition? How about tweeners? Anybody here who, okay, a lot of people who don't seem to have a support or oppose. Yeah, you can come to the desk. That's fine.
Mr. Chairman, Mitch Mitchell, representing Southern California Gas. And my statement, I have our technical expert here on the legislation, but I want to make an initial statement to everybody on the committee. I accept full responsibility for the legislative operation on behalf of Dennis Ariel and our company. And we have met with every single member of this committee just about, and we've expressed our sentiment about the situation, and we've expressed our desire to work with the legislature and the agencies to make sure that we try and fix this situation and address it appropriately so we can move forward. One of the things that we have made clear is that we just think there need to be some suggestions about reliability mentioned in the bill so that the flexibility is given to the agencies so that they can indeed look forward to the summer and the coming years. We are not in opposition to the bill. I want to repeat that. We are not in opposition to the bill, contrary to what has been reported publicly. One person made an error in LA that led to a statement of opposition. But I accept full responsibility for the entire operation, and as all of you know, in meeting with each and every one of you, we have never asked you to oppose this bill. I want to tell Senator Huff and Senator Pavley, we appreciate the opportunity to work with your staff. We've tried to do everything that we've been instructed to do to make sure that we can move forward with this situation. And again, our first focus is safety, followed by ensuring reliability to all of our customers. And Mr. Rook, I apologize to you that we've said anything that has caused you to believe that we're in cahoots or being dishonest. We really have tried to work with you.
Some of my constituents believe that.
So with that, I wanted to make sure we were clear and on the record that we are not in opposition to this bill.
Okay, other tweeners. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman and committee members. My name is Roger Schwecke. I'm Vice President of Customer Solutions for Southern California Gas Company. I've been pretty much living at Aliso Canyon for the past 120 days. And I want to echo what Mr. Mitchell has said, that our position on this bill is neutral. And we stand ready to take any action that this committee or the whole legislature or the other agencies set in place for us to ensure that Aliso Canyon is safe for operations. And we will not put that facility in operation until it's made safe. And whatever is needed to be done, we stand ready to do that. We feel that safety is of utmost concern for us in the storage operations, but also in all of our operations at Southern California Gas Company. We believe that Dogger has put forth some comprehensive safety review plan that we think follows very closely to the Senator's bills, SB 380. What we look for is just that clarity on what steps we have to take, because we'd like to take those as soon as possible. And our efforts to move forward are just that, to make it safe, follow steps, get the certification by what other agencies have to certify it, and take those steps. But it's going to take time, and we'd like to get started as soon as possible. So we're encouraged to hear that Senator Pavley and Huff are looking at working and have discussions with the governor's office. and other agencies, and hopefully we can put forth direction for us to move forth and make the facility safe for everyone and their comfort.
Thank you. Next witness.
Yes, John Larea with the California League of Food Processors. I'm sorry I didn't get up here in time before you announced the tweeners, but we are in full support of CMTA's position and opposed but amended. One of the things we've heard today is a lot about electric reliability of the grid. However, there are other factors that we need to consider too, such as food processors. We depend heavily on natural gas for our operations. We only operate 70 to 90 days out of the year, but during that time we have to have it 24/7. Otherwise, we can lose an entire crop associated with this if we don't have the ability to run. And under the curtailments that I'm looking at, we would be one of the first ones to go in terms of keeping the grid operational. So we are very much concerned to make sure that this bill does what it's supposed to do, which is to make this safe and to make it reliable and to make sure that Aliso Canyon keeps operating at least at a minimum to be able to support reliability within the area.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what we would typically do now is open it up to questions or comments from the members of the committee, but what I want to do is rope in the various alphabet soup agencies that are present, because I know that the committee is going to have questions from you or to you. So if we have representatives from the ISO, DWP, CPUC, CEC, Dogger, CalISO, we already said, Energy Commission, any big industrial users, please come forward.
That's what I. This is the email from SoCal Gas.
Okay, thank you for being here. I just like, and when members of the committee have questions, we can also, if members of the committee have questions for other of the people who testified, we can always bring them back. But I think it's safe to say that the elephant in the room is reliability, and most questions will have to do with reliability. I'm going to ask one, and then I'm going to open it up to all the members of the committee who have one. So reliability, we have asked for some statistics on the needs of the region for natural gas to power things in the summer. It's been very hard to get accurate statistics. The best ones that we've been able to determine is that, and these are as of 2012, so they're probably a little bit higher, but the state of California uses 2,313 BCF a year of natural gas, of which 1,041 BCF is used to generate electric power. Of that, a very rough estimate is that LA County uses 258 BCF of natural gas to generate power. And again, that was based on 2012 numbers. That comes down to 1.5 BCF every 2 days. So hopefully those statistics sound right to those experts in the room. That's the best ones we've been able to get. So this facility now has 15 BCF in it. There's a prohibition on new injections. So the question that I think the committee has is, during the peak summer months where send-out is rather high, we heard it can get as high as 5.1 BCF per day. How do we make sure that we are prioritizing safety and making sure that this community feels like it can go back and that it's not going to suffer as much as it has suffered? But then how do we also make sure that we don't have things like dialysis machines turning off and food processors losing whole crops, LAX shutting down because we can't refine jet fuel, and all the other category of horrors that we've heard about? Who wants to answer that?
This is Rob Olges with the Energy Commission. Maybe the best thing to do would be a quick overview of how the system worked with Aliso and the challenges that are being faced now. I'd preface that even by saying that there's a group of agencies and entities that are meeting and working on the analysis necessary to prepare a plan on how to operate without Aliso during these next critical months and the seasons. And that will be followed with a plan that will be publicly released, hopefully within the next few weeks, and then there'll be a public meeting in the Aliso area the first week of April. But having said that, let me loop back and step back a couple minutes to what Aliso represented in terms of reliability and what the new paradigm is right now without Aliso. So Aliso provided the electrical system and the home heating system with a great deal of flexibility because you had that resource to draw on in times of high need. In the wintertime, core customers, the residences, the businesses rely on Aliso to provide gas primarily for heating and for businesses. Aliso provides gas in the summertime more critically for electrical generation at times where we have high demand. The pipeline system is limited in its ability to import the amount of gas needed on a real-time basis. And in fact, the system down in the Southern California region has been built in reliance on having that flexibility that was provided by having Aliso, so you could draw gas out of it at times where you need to pick up the pace. Unlike electrons, which move at the speed of light, the gas in the pipeline system moves at around 35 miles per hour. So you have to anticipate the need for the gas in advance so you can make the decisions and procurements needed to move the gas to where it's needed at the time when it is needed. In the past, by having Aliso, they could the large users could balance their gas on a monthly basis. We're going to need to balance the gas use on a daily basis and get some real accurate. And we're going business practices are going to have to be changed so that the anticipation of the gas needed would be recognized and delivered just in time for its use. So the operators of the energy system are going to have to communicate to each other, and gas customers are going to have to communicate to each other, and they're going to have to operate the system with tolerances like they've never had to do before. So that's what the critical nature of it is. So I think perhaps that's a very broad and general description of where we are now and how it impacts reliability, how we're going to have to pay attention to it, and the procedure that we're going to go forward by doing an analysis of plan, publicly vetted, released, and discussed. If other representatives or if there are other comments more.
Yeah, I think it's accurate to say that this bill is very important to this committee. We care very much about making sure that that we proceed in the safest way possible, but we also want a concrete answer, which is, will there be brownouts? And it's a yes or no question. So maybe the ISO could give us an answer to that question.
Depends on weather.
Yes, this is Mark Rothfader of the California ISO, the Vice President of Market Quality and Renewable Integration at the ISO. The ISO is the grid operator for approximately 80% of the electric demand in California. We also optimize dispatch in real time for resources in 5 other states. In our role, we do have a role in terms of maintaining reliability. And to answer that question, I wish it was a simple answer, but I can say that based on what we understand of the integral use of the Aliso Canyon storage facility, that without that facility, the reliability, the level of reliability in the Southern California area will not be the same level of reliability that has been maintained up to this point. Will there be brownouts? I don't know if there will be brownouts or load interruption. But I think the risk is increased of the potential need to first, electric generation is the first to get curtailed in terms of gas, if gas gets curtailed. And that's, to a certain extent, that could be managed. And we are preparing to manage for that potential outcome. And there is a certain amount that can be electric generation curtailed without any impact of load interruption to electric reliability. That said, the fact that the potential risk of increased frequency and magnitude of those curtailments to electric generation will increase without the Aliso Canyon there is a potential increased impact of reliability and potential impact of having load interruptions. We are doing everything we can in our capability to reduce that risk. And we have a set of mitigation measures that we've undertaken in conjunction with other agencies. Those include potential use of additional flex alerts, demand response, and use of increasing the opportunity for interruptible demand. We're also increasing our coordination with other agencies, including Southern California Gas and Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, to manage and reliability issues on the electric system in case of the potential need to curtail or reduce the use of gas. Lastly, we are taking measures and support measures to increase the reliability by increasing the scheduling of gas and the procurement of gas ahead of time. The risks of load interruption are mitigated significantly if you can schedule gas ahead of time and reduce the amount of changes that happen in real time. And that opens up the possibility of ensuring, and we're prepared to share information to reduce the amount of changes for electric generation use in real time. Lastly, I do want to say that there is an opportunity to shift some of the generation and electric supply outside of the LA basin, and we will take every measure that we can to do that. We have some additional tools that we have in our disposal through some of the regional coordination measures that we've taken through the energy imbalance market and so forth to shift some of the supply of electricity outside of the area, either to the north in PG&E system or to other states coming from the east. And so we look forward to using those measures to help mitigate potential reliability risk.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to other questions or comments from the members of this panel. We'll start with Mr. Quirk.
Well, I was about to vote for the bill until I heard Mr. Rothleader. I'm worried about making a decision on the bill before we know whether it's a question of an occasional blackout or an occasional particular facility being interrupted, or whether we're talking about, the whole LA basin being blacked out. Can you give me some idea of what the likely impact of not having Aliso Canyon online is? Can you limit it in some way or another?
As I indicated, there's measures that we can take to mitigate and reduce that risk. Okay. Those include shifting generation supply outside of the area. Those include reducing the demand through either flex alerts or demand response, voluntary demand response capability. And those are measures that will be hopefully largely effective in mitigating those reliability risks. And we also have, even through the bill and through the measures today, where there is a reliability use to withdraw some gas from the field to maintain reliability, and we recognize that that's the case. I think the concern is over time, if and when the withdrawal capability is exhausted and there is not ability to withdraw any more gas potentially, and we have the convergence of that and a high demand or high change in demand in the system, what will the impacts be in terms of the electric generation? And at that point, we may be at risk of curtailing electric generation. As I said before, the curtailment of electric generation in of itself is not a reliability issue, unless it is in such high magnitude that we are unable to maintain load serving capability to the local area or to the system as a whole. And I wish I can give you an answer of what the probability is, but frankly, we're in the middle of the current studies that are trying to quantify that impact. But I can say that risk is greater than what it would be without Aliso Canyon.
When will you have a better purchase on this question?
I think that based on the current stage of the analysis, we are probably in a position to be in mid-March and then leading up to, as the letter indicated, end of April, to have an action plan that would articulate both the potential risk and the action plans to mitigate those risks fully.
Okay, I would just feel a lot better if I knew what the risks were before I had to vote on the floor for the bill. And so I would just ask the author if she can give us some time so we can find out what those risks are before we vote on the bill. I have some other more specific concerns, but that, I'm not necessarily opposed to letting it out of this committee today, but I'm not sure I can vote for it on the floor until I know what the real risks are. And if it, again, if the risk is, a couple of days here or there for a small number of industries, fine. But if it's the LA Basin could get a blackout, it's not fine. And I don't hear from Mr. Rothletter which one of those it is. And I gather you're not ready to say yet. You're not willing to bound the problem?
I'm not able to do that today.
Yeah. Would you be able by mid-March to bound the problem?
I think we expect that we'll have enough results to articulate that in the mid-March timeframe, yes.
Okay. Well, I would just ask the author then to give us to mid-March before we vote for it on the floor. Let me get to the concerns that I had before I heard this testimony. First of all, the Aliso Canyon has alerted us to a major issue, which is that all of the gas reserves that we have this same issue. It happened to be Aliso Canyon that went, but it's every reservoir in the state, in the country, in the world has this issue. And we absolutely have to test every reservoir, every well in the state, in the country. Given the hell that these people have been through, I think we need to start on Aliso Canyon. And that should be our emphasis right now, because these people have gone through too much. It's been too difficult, and we need to give them relief. All right, let me get to my specific concerns. Senator Pavley, in SB 380, and these are questions that I've discussed with Senator Pavley already. Yep. In the SB 380 version of the bill, it says state of the art. And so I'm worried about the time it would take to come up with a definition for state of the art. Is there a way in the next few weeks you could put that language in to say what the state of the art is?
Yes, I can work on clarifying that a little bit, but it wouldn't be, I had read from someone they were concerned about all of a sudden Dogger would have to buy all this new equipment and there would be a cost or something like that. The concept is you potentially have a third party who has some of the more current practices available for quickly testing in a really specific state-of-the-art kind of way the integrity of the well casings to make sure they leak. So if you bring in a third party, they've already got this equipment. It's already operational in the field. It's not something that has to be created and manufactured in order to comply with. But if we can clarify that definition for you, that's fine.
Yeah, well, it's more than clarification. I don't want to have to wait several weeks or even months to figure it out.
They're being used now. It's not something that
okay,
has
so
to be manufactured.
if you could put those specific measures in there, I know I've read
like
what Dogger is
as
doing.
Something.
So you can add to what Dogger is doing. That's probably I'd like to know what it was, but you could certainly add to what Dogger is doing. But I think it's important to have that definition in so we don't spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. The second issue is right now, and perhaps Mr. Rothletter, let me pronounce your name, Rothletter?
That's good enough, thank you.
All right. So right now, there's a moratorium on injections, but is there also a moratorium on withdrawals?
It is my understanding that there is withdrawal capability of the currently, I believe it's 15 BCF, but that withdrawal capability is limited and has to be judiciously used only for reliability purposes. So reliability, I think, constitutes both reliability to the core gas customers, but I'm also, I believe reliability also is in the case where we get into the position that we're in jeopardy of having to interrupt electric demand. There would be an opportunity to withdraw to prevent that reliability risk. And it's my understanding that under the current state, there is withdrawal capability allowed for that reliability purposes.
All right. So we can do withdrawals when we really have to for reliability, and we're down to the 15 billion cubic feet.
I think that the specific procedures of when that occurs need to be documented, both on the electric and the gas side, and that's part of the electric gas coordination that needs to occur.
Yeah. My also understanding is that when you get down to about 5 billion cubic feet, then there's an issue of maintaining pressure that you need in the system. Could you, am I correct on that?
I'm not an expert in that area, but that I've heard the same thing.
Is there an expert at the table? Yes.
I'm Greg
Just use the microphone.
Excuse me. So, Chair and members, my name is Greg Reisinger.
Just speak into the microphone.
Okay. My name is Greg Reisinger, and I'm the lead analyst with the CPUC on the issue of reliability at Aliso. And there is a as you withdraw gas from the reservoir or from any gas reservoir, that reduces the capacity of that reservoir to withdraw at a certain pace as you go forward. And it's simply because that gas in the reservoir creates the pressure that allows you to withdraw. When you reach about 5 BCF in the Aliso Canyon Reservoir, there's a reliability standard that the CPUC has established for SoCal Gas. Once you get below that 5 BCF level, you're not able to meet that reliability standard.
So in layman's terms, it's like a balloon, and when the balloon gets too low, it can't push out the gas as fast as you need to.
Absolutely. That's a good analysis.
So basically, of the 15 BCF that's left, you have about 10 that you can use, which isn't a whole lot. Then finally, Senator Pavley, on the question of plugging the wells. Mm-hmm. So again, we discussed this. I would appreciate, well, why don't you address that issue? We have discussed it.
What we had discussed for a relatively brief period of time is there may be some smarter way to review and analyze the wells. We've got about 115 other wells. Dogger has done actually a great job in coming up with the testing and stages and classifications of put wells, but it may make sense eventually to also consider, well, first of all, you test all the wells, but those that appear to have no problems, maybe they're the newer wells, I don't know, but have no problems, they may be able to go online sooner than those wells that we're going to put in the category of needs all 7 parts of this inspection cycle. And if they can't proven to be safe, they would be plugged. But in this way, you would allow a substantial number of wells, perhaps, that have gone through the safety check. They have a 2-pronged safety check of relatively easy at the beginning. If they're able to inject or extract gas, they could go online, which would do a lot to minimize the concern of reliability as we get into the summer months for refilling for the winter and things. We have a nice window of time, and this is my appreciate you say getting this bill out of committee, because the problem is we have a window of time in March, April, and May where there's not going to be a lot of drawing down on the reservoir. It's 85 degrees today out down in Porter Ranch and where I live. And so that's the time where you're not using heating or not a lot of air conditioning either. So there is maybe a more thoughtful way to let some of those wells go back online, increasing reliability, but really the more rigorous tests for those that can't pass the basic safety tests. That's what we're looking at. I have to meet with Dogger. We've had some initial meetings with them. I think they're on the right track. I'm just a firm believer, I think some legislators are this way, of we need to help own this too, and by putting in statute and providing the oversight and make sure everyone is doing what we think is in the best interests of the long-term health and safety of the residents and assuring energy reliability. We're trying to have it both ways. I think we can accomplish that.
Yeah. Well, that would be great. That, in fact, is what the California Manufacturers and Technology Association discussed, being able to know that you have some wells
inspected before anybody. You would have a cursory inspection of all wells, and then some go into one category, some would go in the next. The ones that look like with one other test, they'd be good to go. They would separate those, and the others would be put offline from the reservoir. Some, they'd go through the other tests. Some of them maybe will fail all those tests because of the structural integrity of the well casing. They will be plugged.
So if all that's in the bill when it reaches the floor, I definitely can vote
We'll
for
put
it.
you down as a co-author.
Not yet, but if it's all there, I won't have a problem on the floor. But that's a lot of work, and I would just say maybe April would be a good time to bring it to the floor rather than March.
Here's the mixed challenge on that, and I'm going to do everything I can to expedite everyone. I would feel really good if not only Dogger and SoCal Gas and that third party, they should be inspecting wells now. Why are we waiting? Why aren't we doing that at the beginning of January? I don't get that. And so especially they're going to have to, at least looks like, going through the first two tests. Let's get that going. So if we're sincere about energy reliability, what I don't want to do is, so around April, well, they're not quite there on energy reliability, or there's no more concerns coming out. And I'm trying to operate in good faith here that we can, as a legislature, provide the oversight and make sure our agencies do what they say. I hope they will, but we've had some problems, whether it's DTSC and Exide, or we've had some problems with underground injection control wells. We need to stay engaged on this one. So I'm trying to make sure we hold their feet to the fire to do, at a minimum, protect the health and safety of the residents while also ensuring.
So can I ask the people at the table why we can't start inspecting right now? Is it SoCal or is it? Well, Mr. Schreck.
They've examined a whole bunch of wells and they say they're fine.
Hello, I'm Roger Schwecke with SoCal Gas. You know, we have started inspecting some of the wells. There were the 18 wells that we identified that had similar characteristics, and we've been started inspecting those. And we stand ready to start inspecting. We'd just like to know what we'd like to get done. Is it the noise and the temperature surveys or tests that we have to do? If that's the case, we're staying ready to get going as soon as possible.
Well, let me just modify what you said a little bit. I mean, the noise and temperature tests will tell you if you have a problem now. They won't tell you if you have a problem tomorrow. What the community wants, and I think what the legislature wants, is to start on the tests to determine if there will be a problem tomorrow.
And we can start those tests as well, as long as we know which tests they're looking at. If it is the ultrasonic test, that tool is the same test we're running on those 18 wells today, so we're using that tool today. If it's a caliper test that measures the amount of wall loss that we might have in the casing, we're running those tests today on those 18 wells. So we just want to make sure that we know which ones we run, and we're ready to move forward.
Well, I think you could run the noise test. I think it is a no-brainer, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me that you run the noise test and the temperature test on all wells immediately. Now, I'd like to hear from the regulatory agencies perhaps and from Senator Pavley, But to me, that's a no-brainer, and that can certainly start. The other thing is that at some point you're going to have to, and I couldn't tell, talking to Senator Pavley.
These
Go
are
ahead.
these are draft regulations coming through Dogger right now as far as the testing processes, all the stages I have outlined here. But you're right, it does some noise and preliminary. We want to make sure everyone's on the same page. And the concept here is because we're into the trust but verify mode down with the residents,
Right.
is that, yes, independent person will do this test. SoCal Gas and Dogger will be there on site analyzing results to make sure they came out correctly.
And let's hear from the gentleman from Dogger. Let's hear why we have not begun inspecting these wells already.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Marshall, the Chief Deputy Director of the Department of Conservation, parent of Dogger. The department released the notice, the description of what is going to be a part of those tests. That was released last week. As far as we're concerned, the operator can begin doing that right now. There is an order of the supervisor that needs to follow that announcement. That document that we released was for public consumption. We are going through a bit of a review and having input, allowing people to do that. We did develop this in consultation with the national labs, who provide us a great deal of expertise. As far as we're concerned, that those tests can begin now, and we can begin verifying the results of those as they come in.
Okay, are there any other questions from members of the committee? I believe Mr. Achajian, followed by Mr. Dolly, followed by Burke, Hadley, and Patterson. All right, so, okay, all right, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Kirk, for doing your homework and answering most of my questions. But two questions. One, the governor has executive order. Does your bill create any conflict with his order?
It's consistent and goes a little further in some ways, but we're continuing to work with the administration. They have some amendments they'd like us to look at. They weren't in Ledge Council form, and we haven't had an opportunity to review them. So obviously,
Would you be able to before it comes to the floor?
Excuse me?
Would you be able to look
Oh,
at it?
I'm sure they're coming momentarily. We've had a draft of them. We're waiting for a Ledge Council review, and so before it comes to the floor, we will be doing that.
My second comment, we heard it here before. Let's say I'm a taxi cab owner of a company. A couple of my cars have been caught on the road burning oil and smoking and shouldn't be. Then I get an order from, let's say, CARB to say, pull your cars off the road, and they have to go through inspection, be sure one of them is tuned up, pass the smoke test. As I put them through the test, if they one fails, then it doesn't go back, but if one passes the smoke test with flying colors, why shouldn't be allowed to put it back on the road, not just for my economic reasons, but for the good of the people who need transport?